All right, here we go. Draft season upon us, a week away, and some change from the 2024 NFL draft. So, this is our big NFL draft preview episode where obviously we did a preview of the draft itself last week, but this week we're actually going to be doing here a full mock draft of the first round. So I'm excited for this one, Mark. This is one that we always look forward to doing each and every year. But first, we'll kind of before we dive into this whole thing, the Masters just happened. We had Scotty Scheffler win once again. There's been a lot of talk this year about the weather. There was a lot of talk about, once again, it's a topic every year of Rory McIlroy going for the career Grand Slam, and it continues to elude him, unfortunately. But did you watch the Masters? What was your takeaways from how different each round was, really? And my thing was, I was just surprised at how few scores there were on the final day, given that it was the best conditions they had for the entire tournament.
First of all, I need to go all the way back to the drawing board. I thought we were doing a WNBA mock draft. That's tonight, so I'm off. I had Angel Reese as a surprise upset, going number 1 overall to the Indiana Fever.
Lord. Okay.
So I have to redo all this. No, in all seriousness, I love the Masters. If you follow my other show that I do with my work, it's like my favorite, like, kind of 3-week period where you get to talk about the Masters leading up to it. Then the week of the Masters, you get to talk about it. And then after the Masters, you get to kind of reflect on it. Golf's biggest weekend. And Scotty Scheffler right now, to me, is becoming even if he just becomes a solid putter, he's a solid putter away from becoming like a legitimate, the next Brooks Koepka, in the sense where it's like, this dude could win. He could rattle off 5 or 6 in a 4 or 5 year span and put himself, into an elite company like Brooks has done, getting into 5. Once you get past 4 and you get into 5 or 6, especially 6 or more, that's really rarefied air as far as major wins for men's golfers. The big question for me will be, Scotty's got 2 majors. They're both at Augusta. Can he win somewhere else? And can he get the putting stroke going? I'm done. Like Rory McIlroy, it's been a decade. Him, Jordan Spieth, they are what they are. I think they'll end their careers with the numbers they're on. 3 majors for him, 4 majors for Rory, and they're done. They're just, to me, they're basket cases. They're gone off the deep end. Young golfers like Colin Morikawa, is good to see him come back. I think he's still got another 1 or 2 or 3 majors in his life. He's got 2 majors already. It's just
he's my favorite. He's my current
I love
favorite
Morikawa.
golfer out there.
Yeah, he's great. Young American, great. He represented us in the Olympics 4 years ago. I think he's coming back on the Olympic team for 2024. So, listen, Scotty's unbeatable right now, especially if he's putting at even a decent rate, because he's the only slight weakness to his game. And, he'll be the next guy now. We talk about, can he get into that 5, 6, 7 or more? And then Brooks is always, to me, that he's just such an alpha. His game just doesn't translate right now to Augusta National, but he wins everywhere else in the where the majors are at. So I'd love to get a really great Sunday at a U.S. Open or at an Open this year with Brooks and Scotty, kind of 2 alphas going back and forth at each other. If we can get that in golf this year, that'd be awesome.
They have different styles too. I mean, Scotty's much more of a tactician, right? Especially in his short game. So yeah, it was impressive to see. Obviously, the best round that he had was the worst, conditions the entire weekend and entire tournament. But that just goes to show the resolve and resiliency, because a lot of guys could have, creeped up in that final round.
No one could.
He stayed consistent and still shot under par in the final round and was able to create that cushion for himself, while others, all it takes is one round to fall apart and it's over.
Similar thing between Brooks and Scotty, which I think is funny, is both of them would argue that, like, I think Scotty came out and said now, once his child is born, golf will be the 4th most important thing in his life, like God, wife, child, golf. Brooks would also say golf is not the most important thing in his life, but his priorities are a lot different than Scotty. It's like my supermodel wife, kid, having a good time, something else. And then I golf. Like, they're just both. And I think that's what makes them both so unique and so awesome. I love them both, and hard not to root for Scotty. And he's just that kind of good old American guy. He's just your kind of guy next door who is dominant on the golf course.
Yeah, most definitely. He is something else. Clearly the world number one for a reason, as we saw on display this past weekend. So congrats.
John
Rahm
is also hating life right now, too, in LIV. You could tell.
Yeah,
his quotes coming out basically saying, like, I thought me leaving would be like, oh, okay, and now the dominoes fall, and now let's figure it out, and you're basically back on the tour even though you left. And he's just now like, wait a minute, I'm actually having to play LIV golf, and I can't play PGA golf. This sucks. And I think he's used, I think his transfer over is a real warning for the remainder of the guys. If you're looking for that big payday, it's going to really come with a cost. And these leagues are still really far apart from figuring out how this is going to work continually going forward.
It's very much in the beginning stages of this whole transition and very much a work in progress. So yeah, we'll see kind of how this evolves over time. But yeah, they'll have to figure something out, and some hard decisions will have to be made by a lot of golfers and a lot of organizations that are involved with it. So but nonetheless, a great weekend. We had some pimento cheese sandwiches in honor of it, and
nice.
That was always good. And
they also know how to work the calendar. The Masters ends just after the Final Four and right before the draft, so now they get their weekend
exactly,
and then and now it's back into football.
Yep, 100%. My one bit of advice, if I were ever putting myself into the Masters as a contending golfer, they all switch the fits for each round, of course. It makes sense. I think it'd be pretty cool if you showed up with a full beard round 1, round 2 it's down to a goatee, round 3 mustache, and round 4 clean cut, ready to go and take it by storm.
The video editor guys would hate you for that. They're trying to put the clip, the clips together and everything.
Not only that, but the patrons who are trying to figure out who to follow, they're going to be like, wait, yesterday he had a full beard. I could have swore I was following, Scotty. Nope, you're not. You're following someone else with a full beard today.
Or you know what I mean? When you take the hat off after the final round, you're clean shaven, bald. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Just a bit of advice there for some out there. Who are gonna get ready for their next major. Maybe think about doing that and throwing a
change up the vibes every day.
I like it. All right, here we go. Mock draft here on a Monday. We're gonna go through this entire first round. Like we've done in the past, this is a collaborative effort. However, Mark is getting the odds, so he will have final say on the odds. And I will get final say on the evens, but we're going to have discussions throughout, and we each get one override. So since Mark has all of the odds, if on pick 25, I feel very strongly about one position and I want to use my override, I can do so, and we will have that pick made. You'll be able to follow along here on YouTube, so strongly suggest if you're listening to this episode to maybe fire this up on YouTube if you're able and watch along. We'll have the PFF mock draft simulator up and running here for us, so you can follow along the picks as we make them. So I'll start to share the screen here, and we'll kind of get this thing underway. I got to get my charger here hooked up real quick too.
Okay, well then, while you do that, I'm going to make a costume change as I flip my hat around from backwards hat to forwards hat. Bear down. Get my cup going here. Is if you're watching on the YouTube, you can see it now. I'm now ready to make the first pick.
There we go. I like
this. This is propaganda.
The Bears are on the clock. Number 1 overall pick. Who are you trading this pick to, Mark? That's what
I am. Trading it. No way. This is my pick. This is my destiny. I am taking number 1 overall. The 2022 Heisman Trophy winner from Southern California, 6'1", 214, Caleb Williams.
Mr. Caleb Williams himself. You could put it on the board.
He's off.
There it is. The Chicago Bears officially have Caleb Williams. How's it feel? Gotta feel great.
Chicago Bears. Yeah, I love it. The draft is in Detroit, so he'll be in. It's a quick flight over to Chicago. I can't wait for the Friday pictures, the videos to come out, the meet and greets at House Hall. Ready for it. I'm ready to go all in on Caleb Williams. If you've been listening to the show, I've said it all along. As soon as whatever decision the Bears make, I'm going to support it 100%. And now I'm on the Caleb Williams bandwagon. I will say I'd be more than shocked at this point. I'd be totally blown away if something different happens. If Ryan Poles goes in a different direction, either trading the pick or to a different quarterback, I would be stunned at this point. I think Caleb would too, because he only took one visit, and that was in Chicago at Hallis Hall. So I think he fully expects to be wearing a Bears uniform next year. Ryan Poles gets his guy in year 3 of his regime, and so that extends him. That extends their regime, and he's built up a team around. Now he's just looking for that piece, that leader to lead everything he put around this kid, and can't wait to watch it.
Well, the least surprising news so far, I should say, and probably the least surprising news that we will have throughout this entire first-round mock draft. So there you go, Caleb Williams, the Chicago Bear. By the way, of course, they decided to do some pretty intense hammering on my apartment complex. So if there's loud banging,
I can't hear anything.
In the background.
I don't hear anything, but I'll let you know.
That is the case. But here we go. Washington on the clock here at pick number 2. Obviously, many have considered them a trade candidate, but I am going to go with a quarterback here at number 2. It just makes the most sense in the world for them to stay put, to get the quarterback of the future. They just got, brand new head coach and Mr. Dan Quinn. He's going to get the defensive side locked down for them, but they're going to need some help offensively. Have some weapons there with Terry McLaurin. Who are they going to pair him with? Every year we have these situations where the early favorite pick starts to wane. Jaden Daniels has now become the favorite here to go number 2, but I am sticking with the quarterback from North Carolina.
Wow.
Drake May to go number 2 here to the Washington Commanders. Big reason for this is he is your, prototypical all-encompassing quarterback. He's got the mobility, but, accuracy, can make all of the throws on all platforms. He's just your more traditional style quarterback. And I think that's something that now with Dan Quinn coming in year 1 with Washington, and in a completely new environment, trying to build this team up from scratch, I think they're going to want someone that maybe they view as a more safe pick with still tons of upside. I see Drake May as being that. I think he fits what the Washington Commanders want to do at that quarterback position, and just kind of have that stability that I think that whole organization has been looking for years and years and years. And so, look, Jaden Daniels, great quarterback. He's probably going to go very early here coming up, but I still think, Drake May was the consensus number 2 overall pick for a long time. And I'm wondering if we're starting to zig for the sake of zigging lately and to kind of throw people off the scent. I still feel comfortable that Drake May is going to be the choice here.
I'm surprised by that. I feel very different. I think Jaden Daniels is the choice in Washington. I think that's what the choice they're going to make. I'm not going to use my veto here, my swipe out, because I just want to save it for later. And I think to me, it just comes down to the fact that they move on from Sam Howell. If they were going to go Drake May, I think having Sam Howell there actually would have been a benefit for Drake May. Like, hey, you guys played together in college. You have, you know what I mean, like this kind of this a little bit of a bond, and you say to Sam, listen, you're going to be able to compete for the job, but this is Drake May, and we're going to go with the kid, and we'd love to help you, guide him and be his mentor and do that stuff. But the fact they went with Marcus Mariota as the backup, a very much more mobile style of play, very much in the Jaden Daniels world. I think the arrow really does point at Jaden Daniels at 2, but I think you just made life really easy for the New England Patriots, because I think New England was struggling, and I think there are some New England fans who are struggling with Drake May at 3, because New England really needs a playmaker. They have no one. New England probably has the worst roster.
Drake May is a playmaker, though. I feel like he's getting a lot of unnecessary shit all of a sudden. Like, he was the consensus number 2 for like 2 months, and all of a sudden they're like, oh man, I don't know if he should go top 10. That's weird to me.
Well, I'm 100%. Anyone who says Drake May is not a top 10 pick, I think is ridiculous. I think that's ridiculous. I think Drake May belongs in this top 3. To me, if I was New England, I was ready to take Drake May. That's who I had already written down. I already typed it out. on my sheet because I thought you'd go Jane Daniels. So I had to adjust here. But I think New England's going to be happy with Jane Daniels, and I'll take Jane Daniels at 3 if I'm New England, because I think they look at Jane Daniels as someone who can come in and he can help get first downs for them. He can kind of be their offense, build around in the same way that CJ Stroud was for Houston. Young defensive coach who played for that franchise. They go and get their kind of playmaking quarterback. I think this is the New England fans are ecstatic that Jane Daniels falls to them at 3. I just think Drake May is you're right. He may be a better fit like for today, day 1 in Washington, and a worse fit day 1 in New England, because Drake May's the type of guy that he's going to pass the ball more than he's going to run the ball. Jane Daniels could go out there and he could rush for 600, 700 yards and a couple touchdowns. And I think New England is going to need that because kind of like Justin Fields when he was with the Bears, his first full year with the Bears, his second year, but his first year as the full-time starter, they had no one. He had Darnell Mooney, and that was it. And a young Cole Kmet. And that's where he rushed for the 1,000 yards. They're just like, all right, just make something happen. I think you're going to see that from Jane Daniels now in New England in this style. I'd be surprised if Washington goes Drake May, but I do like your case for it in the sense that he's more prototypical. He's less risky. You feel like his career and his peak is highest of high. It is Justin Herbert, and that is something I think most GMs would sign up for right now. The difference, I think, will be is that the upside of the playmaker that is Jane Daniels, I think, is maybe just too rich for Washington to pass on it too.
Yeah. No, I think those are all good points, and that'd be a solid fit. Yeah, they just don't have the weapons in New England to really support a quarterback, a typical quarterback right now. We've seen that they pay considerable money to the likes of Kendrick Bourne and some other players who certainly many would consider maybe a number 3 or a low end number 2 on many other teams. They are having to rely heavily there. So first 3 picks, 3 quarterbacks. I think we're in pretty clear agreement that if there is no trade into any of these top 3 picks, that there's no chance that it goes anything other than quarterback, right? Like there's no chance.
Well, I think there's a small chance.
The Patriots could potentially go with Marvin Harrison Jr.?
I think there is a small chance they could do that because they may look at, if Jane Daniels is off the board, they may look at Drake May and say, as much as we love the upside, we just are not in a spot right now to add a quarterback. Like it's going to be a disaster for whoever's playing quarterback. So you might as well, they have Jacoby Brissett. Like you have an adult in the room. They could argue, let's just let the adult in the room take the lumps this year. This is going to be a longer rebuild than just 1 year. Houston got it right with their player. I could see New England still maybe later in the, early second round taking a guy who's still on the board if they've fallen and going Marvin Harrison Jr.
I don't think or something. Yeah.
I don't think there's any question that 1 and 2 are quarterbacks. I would go Jane Daniels, but you're going Drake May. You're sticking with the early predictions, and I love it because you're right. A lot of this could all be smoke screens and things like that. So we'll wait and see.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out too that I used, for a lot of inspiration here when going through. Dane Brugler for The Athletic always puts together what he calls the Beast. It's a giant draft PDF breakdowns of every possible player. He gives rankings. I would highly suggest checking it out. I think The Athletic, that'd be great if they were a sponsor. They are not, but it's $2 a month, and I would definitely suggest going there. If not, just for that first month to get the Beast. It's awesome stuff. Pick number 4. We've got the Arizona Cardinals here. I think it's obviously a no-brainer if they stand pat. I think this is the first pick we've encountered that could really seriously be traded. I actually feel strongly that Arizona would be more than willing, maybe not to trade, too far down, but they would probably trade with Minnesota here. This is a key spot for Minnesota to target. But again, we're not doing any trades here in this first round mock. We are keeping every pick as it is. And so the Arizona Cardinals stick here, and they have a shot to get an all-timer at the wide receiver position. a generational talent. Marvin Harrison Jr. off the board now at number 4, by far the best wide receiver in this draft. And Kyler Murray, it appears that they are absolutely sticking with Kyler Murray moving forward, and to have things work and get a quick turnaround, they got to have someone for him to throw to. And right now, Marvin Harrison Jr. would give them an instant number 1 target. It's a pretty clear-cut case here for this one. No surprises, I don't think,
no,
from anyone to see MHJ go here to the Cardinals at 4.
No, if they don't trade it, it's the obvious pick. Yeah. It's the smartest thing they can do. Marvin Harrison Jr. has like zero bust potential in the sense that
pretty much, yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, there's some other guys, wide receivers later on in this draft who, you know, you never know. You had Puka Nacua show up last year as a 5th rounder, become the best wide receiver in last year's draft. They could end up maybe having a more of a pop season or something like that, but you're teaming him already with a proven NFL quarterback who's in like a prove it year, and he is going to an offense that desperately needs a wide receiver number 1. He knows how to be a pro from his dad. I think it's a home run pick if they stay with it and they take Marvin Harrison Jr. as a home run.
Very easy for sure. All right, well, you got the Chargers here at number 5, and they're obviously a very interesting one.
Yeah, I definitely think the Chargers also should be open to phone calls, right? Taking phone calls. If I was like it had it my decision, I would say try to trade out of there because the Chargers need more draft picks. They need a lot of revamping, a lot of depth. And Jim Harbaugh, he has an advantage, him and his staff, because they've been in college last couple of years. It was like Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll built that Super Bowl team with Seattle early in his career, right after he left UFC, because he knew guys that other guys just didn't. They just had a feel for guys because they'd been in college, winning at a high level, recruiting all these guys. I think if they stay here, Jim Harbaugh builds teams in his image. Look at Michigan. Look what he did at Stanford. Look what he did at San Francisco. Big physical. There is one true top 5 offensive lineman in this draft. That's Joe Alt from Notre Dame. He's big. He's ugly. And Jim Harbaugh is going to use him and build his team with now those 2, Slater and Joe Alt. Those are cornerstone pieces for Jim Harbaugh moving forward the next couple of years in his tenure in Los Angeles. So Joe Alt's the pick at 5.
And, you know, obviously the Chargers could go a couple different directions here, and they could get one of the all-time, you know, great prospects at wide receiver in Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze or something like that. But the issue for some of these top guys, Neighbors, Odunze, you know, Brian Thomas, like, any of those, is that it is such a deep class, and a lot of these teams can afford to punt on the position and still hopefully get a really quality pick with their second pick, third pick. Whereas there's only one Joe Alt, and we also have heard, you know, Harbaugh talk time and time again about, you know, he is not mincing words about what he cares about and what he values, and he's going to have a major influence on what they do in the draft here.
Totally.
And so I absolutely agree. He's all about the offense and defensive lines, and so this is a pretty clear-cut pick here at number 5. If they stay put, Joe Alt's the guy, number 1 tackle off the board. And so the New York Giants now have a very interesting dilemma on their hands. Do they go quarterback? J.J. McCarthy's available, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., but we've got 3 quarterbacks off the board while you've got, you know, the number 1 available wide receiver being Malik Neighbors, who is, you know, a consensus top 5 pick by many. And so, you know, do they go that route? Do they go and try and snipe the best cornerback in the draft, and Tyrion Arnold or something like that? I think it's pretty clear. Look, they are devoid of playmakers. They've kind of made their bed at the quarterback position. And at this point, unless they trade back, this wouldn't make much sense to take the 4th best quarterback with a premium number 6 overall pick in the draft. So in my view, even though you'd love to just be able to move on from Daniel Jones and have another quarterback in there to reset things, I think it makes the most sense for them to go for a guy like Neighbors, get a great talent at the position. And hey, maybe they try and trade up it back into the first round and take a Bo Nix, or take him, hopefully he falls in the second round or something like that, and take a quarterback there. But first round, they got to go with the, you know, most clear cut talent, and that's Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think they go quarterback here at all. I think they try to trade out And if they don't, they'll go with the best player available. The Giants have a lot of needs. And so
Me too.
And so getting a player like Neighbors in the big market of New York, you have an ability to just say, all right, we got ourselves a wide receiver number one. Daniel Jones is kind of in a prove it year. And I still think the Giants will address a backup quarterback or an option at quarterback in the second or third round, to where if Daniel Jones is struggling through 4 or 5 weeks, it's a quick leash. You know what I mean? But they're going to roll with Daniel Jones this year because of the contract. They can get out of it better next year. But this year, they're kind of just, as you said, they made their bet.
Absolutely.
The Tennessee Titans. I mean, to me, obviously, Tennessee would love to see Joe Alt somehow still be there at 7. I don't think he's going to. But I think Tennessee now can throw a little bit of a wrench into the draft where you look at, you say, hey, we need a tackle and we need offensive line. Maybe not a name that you've heard of talked about as high in the recent weeks, but a guy who's really skyrocketing it up. He's Mel Kiper's number 2 ranked offensive tackle. And he's big, he's nasty, he's gigantic, and I think he would be a perfect fit in Tennessee. That's J.C. Latham, tackle from Alabama.
Mauler.
He's a mauler. Kiper has him graded out as the 14th overall prospect. So a little bit of a reach, 2nd overall tackle. And I just think, again, SEC and Big Ten offensive linemen, a lot of people like Fuaga of Oregon State, maybe there. I like him too. But I've seen J.C. Latham in practice go up against the best of the best and game day, go up against the best of the best consistently. And he's just massive. He's a giant human being who can help them say, hey, we've addressed so many other positions. We address wide receiver. We have weapons. We got a running back in. Now let's try to give Will Levis some protection and work on this offensive line. So I'm going to go with J.C. Latham at number 7 for the Titans.
I don't hate it at all. And, Brugler, who I, mentioned earlier, he has JC Latham as the number 3 tackle. And so there's obviously you could kind of go either way. Fashanu, I think he had number 2 there. But it's all about what you want as well. And Latham, that might be the best, run blocking offensive lineman in this entire draft. And he certainly got starts under his belt. So he's got the experience and can be plugged in right away. A true right tackle for them as well. And so, it's, they need offensive line. How bad? And yes, they could have gone receiver, but they just spent a lot of money to Calvin Ridley. And you hope Treylon Burks, continues his development and becomes big for you. So, I like the pick there with J.C. Latham. Maybe the first potential surprise, I'm not sure if it'll be a surprise to you or not, but with the Falcons here at number 8, I think they're going to go on the defensive side of the ball. And, those are the biggest needs for them. There are some great, options across the board. I don't think the fact that them going defense is a surprise given how many offensive weapons they have. But really what it comes down to for me is, are they going to go with, the top cornerback is still sitting there. And really it's a couple of prospects that you could choose between. You could go interior defensive line. I'm going to go edge rusher here. And I think Dallas Turner out of Alabama, who is the best edge rusher in this class, in my view. And, by most out there, there's only about 1 or 2 potential first round edge rushers that people have listed here. Latu is there from UCLA, but Dallas Turner, I'm going to go with. He's been a riser as of late, and I think he would fit really well with what Raheem Morris wants to do there in Atlanta. And look, it's the name of the game in the NFL is you got to have great tackles, a great quarterback, great edge rushers as well. So I think this is going to help start the turnaround for the Falcons defense and help keep them in contention as they figure out what they're going to do on offense. I think it's going to be later in the draft or even maybe next year that they turn to the quarterback position because they got Kirk Cousins now for a couple of years. They're feeling good. Now get some stability around them.
It's a 2-year run with Kirk Cousins. So if they're going to draft a quarterback, it'd be later rounds this year and or mid-early rounds next year type of thing. But they don't really have to worry about a quarterback until you're going into the 2020, 6th season, really. Dan, I would ask you really quickly, why Turner over Verse? A lot of people, I'm seeing Verse getting a lot of love because just a little more consistent, better numbers. Why go Turner there? What makes him better in your mind than Verse?
I think I think he's a better run defender. And I know that that's not, the end all be all when you're evaluating edge rushers. Ultimately, you want them to be the pass rusher. And Verse might be a little bit more polished of a pass rusher. And, but, I also value the fact that he was at Alabama.
Yeah.
Alabama is a trusted factory for defensive playmakers. And really skill position players on top of that. So that does play part of it, but no, I think he presents the all-around skill set, and I think going to a team like the Falcons, who probably feel comfortable being able to refine and polish some of
Defensive
these
head coach.
more raw prospects, exactly. I think that would be more attractive to them because I think Turner in the end probably has a little bit bigger of a potential ceiling, while Verse maybe is coming in a little bit more ready to dominate in the league. So look, I mean, it could have gone either way, but I just felt a little bit better about Turner. I thought that he can kind of give them
Totally.
the 1-2 punch of being a great pass rusher, but also just being a good run defender for them as well.
All right, you let me get to it.
Here.
Bear down. Got to get my hat back
Bear
on
down.
the right way. So let's go here. And I think it's obvious at this point in time for me, the Bears are going with Rome Odunze, wide receiver, Washington. The Chicago Bears, this is really kind of a 1-year rental with Keenan Allen. They will be able to extend him at the end of the year if they want to. But this looks like, hey, we want to do everything in our power to make sure the offensive side of the football for the Chicago Bears looks like it hasn't looked in my lifetime, meaning more than competent, almost scary, impressive, and getting Caleb Williams, the number 1 quarterback, and getting Rome Odunze, who is without a doubt in my mind one of the best wide receivers in this class. Him and Neighbors, they're just different bodies, a little different style. To me, what's crazy about Rome Odunze is his best comp, like peak high-end comp, is Keenan Allen. Like same size, same weight, very fluid in that way. And I just think pairing your young quarterback with a young receiver plus the 2 established stars, Chicago Bears offense will look absolutely electric if it all comes together and works out. Plus, the new offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, he just was in last year in Seattle where they had 3-star wide receivers, and they had drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba to go with DK Metcalf and Lockett. So he understands how to run an offense where you have the multiple wide receivers. I think this is also then quickly, easily can become the Bears' go-to number 2 guy. And the Bears may, with that pick, vaunt themselves up into the number 1 receiving core in the NFL, which is insane to think about.
That is crazy.
So to me, it's the obvious pick if the draft shakes out the way it has.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to have a bad first round here if you're the Chicago Bears. It's Caleb Williams. You set yourself up with a potential quarterback of the future for the next 15 years. And then at 9, you're going to have your pick of the litter either way. If Rome Odunze is somehow not available, then you'll get a great offensive lineman, or you can get a cornerback or something. There's endless possibilities for Chicago here. And all of them point to a win-win strategy for them. I like Rome Odunze. I think he's a great choice for them here, and really provides a good balance to what some of your other receivers have in DJ Moore and Cole Kmet and the rest. So I like it. What a receiving core, what an offense this would turn into in quick order. Love it. So we got the Jets here at number 10. An interesting dilemma here for New York, as they have big needs at the wide receiver position outside of Garrett Wilson. They have a need at tight end. They could really use a tackle, even though they kind of did some makeshift, repackaging there through free agency this offseason. They could use some help on the defensive side. But you can't go defense here if you've got Aaron Rodgers, if you're in win now mode, you have a defensive head coach who can get the defense perfectly right, and they have already good players
Well,
on defense.
They added what's his name, Reddick. I mean, they've gone in onto the defense. Yeah,
they're good there. So for me, it's between wide receiver and offensive lineman. 3 wide receivers are off the board. If you're the Jets, I think we could still probably go and get a top tier wide receiver in the second round and hope that some fall. And if not, it's not the worst case scenario. You're not dealing with the worst grouping of talent. And I lump Brock Bowers in with that wide receiver group too, because he really can be a wide receiver. But to me, this team cannot afford another injury to Aaron Rodgers. This team cannot afford an injury to their offensive line. And so for those reasons, with Fashanu sitting there available, who very easily could be the number 1 tackle available, they've got 3 here on PFF, Fuaga and Fashanu ahead of him. I personally think Fashanu is probably the best one available in my view, but a lot of these guys are interchangeable. I'm going to go with, and I'm going to butcher the name, Olamuyiwa Fashanu out of Penn State, the big tackle to help secure that. And he's a guy, Mark, that wouldn't necessarily need to start right out of the gate. Maybe week 4, week 5, you can kind of slowly bring him along. I think he probably would start right out of the gate. But to be able to have some flexibility and some depth there on the offensive line and move guys around, it's going to be crucial for them and help keep Aaron Rodgers upright, because he's going to need some time to throw, whether or not he gets a great playmaker wide receiver here at number 10. So that's my pick. You got to go O-line in my view.
Yeah, it sucks because I was eyeing Fashanu hopefully falling maybe to 11 to the Vikings. And I do think if the draft goes the way we've gone so far, Brock Bowers would be hard for them to pass up.
It would.
They do have they brought in Mike Williams. They still have what's his name, the going into his 3rd year, wide receiver. He had a great rookie year for the Jets. Now I can't think of his name. The wide receiver for the Jets. He was injured most of
from last year. Sorry,
he was injured most of last year. Very good young wide receiver.
Was that Mims?
No. This is embarrassing. It's bad.
I don't know.
Come on, you got to know.
Young wide receiver who's injured. I know. I'll probably be
Jets wide receiver. This is bad radio. Jets wide receiver. Do you have Garrett Wilson, Ohio State?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I thought you were talking about someone else. Yeah, no. Garrett Wilson.
No.
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams. They have guys, right? They have guys. But Tyler Conklin is listed as their starting tight end as of now. I could really see them going, let's go Brock Bowers. We're going all in on Aaron Rodgers.
I can understand that too, but I consider Fashanu also going in on Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree.
Yeah, it's kind of a either way, and I understand because Bowers
you add Tyron Smith and you hope he can start 14, 15 games. But otherwise, that offensive line, they need the depth, they need the future, and Fashanu can be that. Let's get back to it. So at 11 with the Vikings, I'm going with Jared Verse. Now I know that's defense, it's edge there. And what I like about this is obviously they have a need at edge. They lose Danielle Hunter. He was really the engine that kept that defense going. The defense has been brutal the last couple of years, improved last year, took a step forward. You lose Danielle Hunter, you've got to replace that production. And I just think at this point in time, because we're not doing trades, if the Vikings are taking a quarterback in the first round, I believe it would be with a trade up, a big trade up. Otherwise, if someone really falls to them, I could see them taking someone at 23 who keeps falling, and maybe we'll see how it goes. I have to pick for the Vikings again at 23. If someone keeps falling, then I could maybe see them snagging that person later on in the draft. But right now, I just don't think they can let an elite edge rusher go at this point in time if they haven't already traded up for a quarterback.
Interesting. Yeah, this is I would have guessed that it was JJ McCarthy with the pick here. It's probably too high for JJ McCarthy to go. And That much I understand, but also if you're Minnesota, you just take a quarterback when you can get them because you don't know when they're going to come around. The flip side, and to bolster your argument, their defense has gotten to be pretty brutal. Like, they need all the help they can get. And Sam Darnold's still a young quarterback. And so maybe Kevin O'Connell and company feel confident that they can get the necessary wins out of Sam Darnold to still be a relatively competitive team. And if you're not, then you go and you'll be able to get a quarterback next year and hopefully not have to choose between the fourth, fifth, and sixth best quarterbacks. You'll be able to choose between the top three quarterbacks potentially next year. So I could understand both arguments. And to your point, they also have another pick later on. But I could also argue, Mark, that later on pick, they'll potentially have their pick of, oh, we can get a top cornerback still available, or we could choose and get Byron Murphy. They can maybe be a little bit more picky about what position on defense they want to go with that later pick at 23. But I get it. If Jared Verse, there's been almost no defensive players taken so far. We had one go off the board here. And so with Jared Verse sitting there, that's probably too tempting for Minnesota to pass up on. We'll recap right now as we go into these middle portions of the first round. So we got Caleb Williams, 1 overall to the Bears. Drake May goes number 2 overall to Washington. Jaden Daniels, number 3 overall to the Patriots. Then it's Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Cardinals. Joe Alt, the first offensive lineman, to the Los Angeles Chargers. Giants take Malik Neighbors. J.C. Latham to Tennessee. Dallas Turner, the edge out of Alabama, to the Falcons. Bears come back at Rome Odunze, wide receiver Washington. And then it's Fashanu, the tackle, going to the Jets, followed by Jared Verse, the phenomenal pass rusher out of Florida State, going to the Vikings. So overall now we've got Sean Payton and company and the Broncos sitting here at 12. They do not have much draft capital here over the next couple of years. They are in desperate need of several positions across the board: quarterback, defensive tackle, wide receiver, corners. Well, they could go with. So a lot of options here for Denver. But if I'm Denver and I'm Sean Payton, I don't think I'm feeling too comfortable rolling out. What is it? Jarrett Stidham right now. That would be their number 1 quarterback. On the roster there in Denver. Regardless of what you view this next season as, knowing what we know about Sean Payton, he's not going to be too keen on just mailing in an entire year and going 3-14 to get a top pick next year. I think if the number 4 quarterback is available here and they've got some offensive pieces still available, they've got, a good veteran wide receiver in Cortland Sutton. They've got another young receiver in Mims there. They've got, some playmakers on defense, and they've got a running game. I'll go with J.J. McCarthy here at 12. And if I'm Sean Payton, I think I'm happy to have a quality quarterback who is a very competent pro already. It seems like he's a guy that will come in and be very receptive to kind of putting himself at the mercy of the system. And I think that's perfect for what Sean Payton wants. If Sean Payton gets a hyper athletic quarterback in the system, it might be a little bit more difficult to tailor them to what Sean Payton likes to do with the, quick, accurate West Coast style system. JJ McCarthy, I think, would be really good for that. And he has sneaky athleticism too. I think it'd actually be a really good fit pairing him with Sean Payton. So what are your thoughts on them going quarterback here at 12 if McCarthy is available to them?
I'm okay with it because, again, they just can't afford to trade up. They got to hope someone falls. Right. And then
they should be trading back, no questions asked.
Yeah.
But, of course, we're not doing that here.
The thing about it is with Denver, if you're a fan of the Broncos, you've put yourself in this really bad spot, right? You made a horrible mistake. You're trying to now clean up the pieces of your horrible mistake. You're looking up at an incredibly tough division with the defending Super Bowl champions and the dynasty in your division. You have then Jim Harbaugh coming to town to get the Chargers figured on out. And we like Antonio Pierce and that hire and the stability in Vegas. I will say this. You a lot of people would say, oh, well, what? I mean, JJ McCarthy, like, the Broncos need to pair Sean Payton with an elite prospect. This organization has basically given Sean Payton the keys. It's Sean Payton's job to make JJ McCarthy a top 10 quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're drafting a quarterback here, Sean Payton's career is on the line for whatever quarterback they take. Because if this quarterback fails, if they trade up for one, if they trade back for one, whatever he trots out there and be like, this is my guy, I'm sticking with him, and I moved off Russ, his reputation's on the line with it. So if this would be a Sean Payton sign off 100% to make this pick. I don't know if they're going to do it or not, but I'll let it stand. I won't use my my veto. That's for sure. I just say,
here's the thing too. My last thing on the JJ McCarthy to the Broncos is that, one of the big reasons that Sean Payton wasn't gelling well with Russell Wilson is because Russ's style of play is to manufacture plays and to create. Sean Payton, this is what made him and Drew Brees such a great pairing, is that it was all about, much like Kyle Shanahan, like all about get it to the guy. The guy will be open because this is how I've designed the offense. You need to just work within structure, work quickly. And JJ McCarthy is that type of quarterback.
He is.
And so I think that would work well here, even if he's not, maybe worth a 12th overall pick. You also kind of just have to lie in the bed that you've made for yourself.
Yeah, they do.
Sometimes you have to reach to just get guys to work.
Totally. Now, I will just say this about JJ McCarthy. Here's my overall, if you want my hottest take on JJ McCarthy. I think there's a reason why he's not going to Detroit for the draft. The kid played quarterback in the state of Michigan. He's a Michigan legend who just won a national title. And yet him and his family decided not to go to Detroit where the draft is even though they were invited. The only quarterbacks going are Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and Caleb Williams. There's a reason why. I think it's because there's a chance he falls. And it wouldn't shock me.
Very well could.
I predict JJ McCarthy will not be a top 10 pick. I think there's a chance he falls till late in the first round, and maybe someone trades back up in to get him, or maybe in my plan, if everything worked out, it would have fallen to Minnesota at 23, and they would have snagged him there at 23. You went a different direction, that's what the draft does, so you throw things off. I wouldn't be shocked if Denver takes him at 12, but I think that, to me, this is as high as he would go. Yeah. I think this is the pinnacle of the height. Maybe the Vikings at 11, that would be it. Like, that's the peak. I don't think he's going top 10, and he must not have a hot enough girlfriend to be willing to risk the falling in the draft, like our guy Will Levis last year, because he was okay sitting there in the green room because he's got a smoke show girlfriend. So it's like, all right, well, we don't feel too bad for him. Like, we don't feel too bad that he's fallen. So that's my hot take on JJ. Overall, I will say, I don't know if I value JJ McCarthy any higher than I value Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. I see them very much in the same kind of grouping, versus Caleb, Jaden, and Drake, I think, are in a separate grouping. That's my opinion.
I would agree with that too. Well, to an extent, I think JJ might be in a small tier by himself. But I would probably, to me, I like Penix better than Bo Nix too. So I would probably have between Penix and JJ McCarthy, kind of working between how that's going to work. But I just think it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds. There's going to be surprises. There's going to be guys falling. JJ very well could be one of those that falls, and maybe we only have 3 quarterbacks going the entire first round, and that's it. Yeah, that could happen too.
The Raiders do what the Raiders do at 13, and they take a star from a smaller school, the number 1 cornerback on Mel Kiper's big board. He's actually the 10th ranked prospect on Mel's big board. Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback from Toledo, goes to the Vegas Raiders.
They want to get quick guys. I get it.
He's fast. He is 6 foot, 195. He's big. He can guard guys in that division with some good wide receivers in division. And so I think he's going to may have a home in the silver and black in Las Vegas.
Gotcha. Yeah, no issues there. That makes a lot of sense. And the Raiders are the Raiders. There's not much changing them there. And look, I mean, it fills a big need for them too. So
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense. If they're not trading up to get a quarterback, then they're going to be in the situation where it's offensive lineman or corner, something in that range. So we've got New Orleans now sitting here. So many teams need quarterbacks. So many teams need wide receivers. Chris Olave is a young, great wide receiver there for New Orleans. They could afford to not get one here. And with how rich of a tackle class, especially at the top, the top 6 tackles are
all first round
really,
grades.
really good. And there's a lot of first round capable tackles. I could see them going with a variety of options here. But Talisi Fuaga out of Oregon State is sitting there and looks great at 14. I think that's an awesome pick for New Orleans. And, he's ranked number 12 here in PFF rankings. Dane Brugler is his number 4 tackle. All the other 3 great tackles are off the board. And so if we're still going to go offensive line, which is kind of what I would lean to here, then it's between Fuaga and Amarius Mims in my view. And we've got Fuaga sitting there. So let's go with
like the pick.
Talisi Fuaga out of Oregon State.
Like the pick. Very good. Should be a great pro, and New Orleans can use him as, kind of a cornerstone of their offense going forward. The Colts at 15, they go cornerback, and they take a kid from Iowa. What do you mean? What do you mean an Indianapolis franchise taking an Iowa kid first overall? The Fever do it with Caitlin Clark, and the Colts surprise people, and they go Cooper DeJean. He's going to go ahead. It's a little bit of a surprise pick, but they're going to use him, I think, in creative ways.
Yep.
Returner. The return game is going to return this year because of the changes, and Cooper DeJean is a weapon in the return game. I think the Colts and their smart offensive coaching staff know that. They need help on defense in that division. Some good young quarterbacks, good wide receivers. Cooper DeJean is going to make a name for himself in Indianapolis. The Iowa Stars in Indiana.
There we go. I love it. No, that's great. That is a great pick there. And I'm a big fan of DeJean. And look, they need corner help and safety help. He's a guy that could really, like you said, like he can kind of fill 2 of those voids for you, whichever is a bigger need that you think on your team.
6'1", he's big.
All-purpose guy, super athletic, and the return game, definitely a big help there. So I love him being a top 15 pick because there was a lot of talk about him dropping and falling, and I just feel like he is such a talented Swiss Army knife of a player. Those don't come around very often.
Chris Ballard's a smart GM, and I think they'll see the talent with a Cooper DeJean, and they're gonna have a plan for him.
I love it. So look, interior offensive line, major need here for Seattle. I mean, they need a lot of help on that O-line. So I think that's absolutely where they're going. And there is you could go with one of the top centers, of course, sitting here. There's a lot of availability. And then you could also even go with tackle. Now, a lot of people are projecting Troy Fautanu, who, is listed as a tackle. Many are projecting him to actually be a guard at the NFL level. And so I think, with him there, he would be the top guard in this class. And so he gives you flexibility and also being the top guard. I'm also considering going with the top center, but personally, Mark, and we've talked about this, there are 3 great NFL centers potentially in this class, maybe a 4th.
But they're not first rounders.
Because there's only 4 of them that they're getting bumped up in value? That seems to be the case. And so taking one at 16 seems pretty rich, but I wouldn't be shocked if Seattle went that route. However, I'm going to go Troy Fautanu out of Washington.
Yeah.
And they're going to play him at guard, and I think he's going to be a stud. Help with that run game. They've got 2 great young running backs there. Help aid along, their young quarterback situation there in Seattle, and hopefully figure it out when they can actually go and get the quarterback of the future one day down the road. But in the meantime, they show up the offensive line.
kind of a homegrown kid being a Seattle Seahawks,
Exactly.
Seattle and
Yeah.
so I like it.
Love
I like it. That leaves the Jags with the ability for them to take who they think is the number one
fascinated by Jacksonville.
Number one corner in this draft. And again, their rivals in Indianapolis just took a corner. They have got to bulk up in the defense. They need a corner, and Terrion Arnold from Alabama is sitting there. He's the type of guy that, again, he's a Nick Saban, like a perfect Nick Saban player. Tall, 6 foot, 190, physical. And getting him at 17, if he falls, I think Jacksonville will be really excited to have Terrion Arnold come on into Jacksonville. Listen, they need offensive line help. They need, but it's interior O-line stuff. I just don't see them, especially with you going Fautanu right there. I think it leaves the door open. Hey, if Terrion Arnold is still sitting there, they're going to make the pick for the Jags at 17.
I really like it. They definitely need a lot of help on the defensive side. And Terrion Arnold, the best pure cornerback in this class. We've obviously saw Quinion Mitchell go off the board, the fastest, best metrics guy who can definitely probably provide some splash there. We've seen DeJean, the utility guy, but Terrion Arnold, a pure, great shutdown corner, should be really good for them. And I'm sure Jacksonville would maybe even consider this a steal at this point in the draft for them to be able to get someone of his caliber there at 17. Now we've got, based on how this has fallen, I would have thought certainly I'd be going offensive line here for Cincinnati, who has just needed help in that department for so long. But man, Mark, Brock Bowers is sitting here. He has fallen to 18, and they need a tight end. And they are not hurting for weapons necessarily, but we've heard T. Higgins trade rumors. Are they going to be able to pay long-term to have Chase and T. Higgins? They just shipped off Joe Mixon. So they're losing some, playmakers on the offensive side. Brock Bowers, really good pick here that he has fallen. I just can't pass it up at this point. Fills a need for Cincinnati and gives them just an incredible weapon to use in multiple ways on that offense. Brock Bowers finally off the board here to Cincy, and listen, as a Steelers fan, that hurts.
If he falls to the Bengals, there a lot of people will be looking around going, "How the bleep did we let that happen? How did we let Joe Burrow get him?" And it makes T. Higgins a little more expendable at the end of the year. Like you have then a second weapon for Joe Burrow. Look at Josh Allen got his tight end, Dalton Kincaid. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes has his tight end. Now Joe Burrow gets his go-to tight end. That's great. Love it. That, to me, leaves the Rams open at 19 to take the Aaron Donald replacement, the best defensive interior lineman in this draft. The man out of Texas, Byron Murphy, is going from the Longhorns to the Rams out in Los Angeles. He's a happy camper. Just go from Austin to Los Angeles. Nothing wrong with that. Byron Murphy's the pick for the Rams at 19.
It's great. No, they do need to fill that need. We saw last year that offensively, they're in good shape. They've got a lot of young playmakers outside of Cooper Kupp. And, Matt Stafford proved that, last year he's still able to sling it at an elite rate. And so, look, they're still in a win now mode, I believe, Los Angeles is. They made the playoffs despite some, adversity, and a lot of people, including myself, picking them to be one of the worst teams in the league. Proved a lot of people were, I'll get to the playoffs. So, yeah, you lose Aaron Donald, plug in Byron Murphy. Obviously, he's not going to be Aaron Donald immediately, but a starter-ready NFL player, and really helps ease that, loss of such a generational talent there. Love it. So at 20, we've got Pittsburgh here. They can also go a lot of ways. If we look at the void at wide receiver that they
go
have.
Go get Justin Fields some help.
Johnson. Yeah, exactly. We got, Brian Thomas available, really talented receiver out of LSU, Adonai Mitchell out of Texas, Ladd McConkey. There's some really good wide receivers here available. If we want to go, they have their pick of the litter at center with Jackson Powers Johnson. And let's see, what is Zach Frazier, who's projected to be more of a second round pick. I think down here they've kind of pushed Graham Barton far down in terms of their interior offensive lineman, but he would probably be almost the best center in my view. But I don't think they're going to go that route. I think it's too early to go center. We've talked about it plenty of times. And with the need anywhere on the offensive line. To me, they're going back-to-back offensive tackles in back-to-back years from the University of Georgia. They're going to take
Mims.
the giant man, Amarius Mims, out of Georgia there to be their right tackle, be able to move Broderick Jones back to left tackle, which is his true position. That worked out well for them last year, picking him. Now they pair him up with his teammate. Amarius Mims, definitely more of a project in the NFL, so he might have a slow progression to start the year.
A lot of tough assignments in the AFC North. Those D-lines are nasty.
It's a very much a welcome to the NFL type of situation, but they really need to shore up both tackle spots, and I think getting a guy that has a super high ceiling in Amarius Mims. He's only got 8 starts, so yeah, he's raw, but I think they're going to go this route and hope to get a better wide receiver day 2 or day 3, and also try and find that center in round 2. So we'll cross our fingers and hope for that, but get a great talent here at 20.
Oh, that hurts because I was eyeing Mims for the Dolphins at 21. I'm gonna pivot here. They have a need at edge and defensive line.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, they lost Christian Wilkins, right? So.
Yeah, with Latu still on the board. I know the neck injuries are concerning, but this Dolphins team is kind of in a win now mode, anyways. Like, if you want him on his rookie deal, playing as hard. If he doesn't play for 8 years for your team, that's okay. Right now you have Tua and you're not paying him anything. It's a win now mode for Miami. So I'm going Latu, the edge from UCLA. At number 21.
Honestly, not so much agreement so far. I haven't felt the pulsating urge to use my override yet. So I agree with you there. I think that's a good route to go. It's a smart move for the Dolphins. They could be, chomping at the bit to get another great weapon, or maybe
they
a
even
project.
Need a tight end. If Brock Bowers falls,
that he was definitely going at this point. But we've got Philadelphia here, and they could go a couple different routes as well. They really need a linebacker badly, but we've talked about how poor this linebacker class is overall, and I think it would be a pretty big surprise to see any off-ball linebacker go in the first round, even if it's a big need for them. Yes, wide receiver is a need because they don't have much depth there outside of Brown and Devontae Smith. But I also think at 22, that'd be more of a luxury pick than something that you can really sink your teeth into, with some really talented options at corner still available. I think they're going to go with Nate Wiggins or Kool-Aid McKinstry here. Either one would be a really good pick, I think, for Philly. But look, you're going to need to be able to properly contend with Dallas in division, who has CeeDee Lamb. You've got Terry McLaurin in division. And, we look back all the way to pick number 6 here, and now you're going to have Malik Neighbors in division as well. Gonna need a really quality cornerback that they have, not necessarily had great play out of that position last year. Go get Nate Wiggins and help shore that up on the defensive side. You've got a great interior defensive line, and some help on the back end will be much appreciated. I'm going Nate Wiggins here at 22.
Yeah, I like that pick. Those kind of top 4 guys we talked about, Tyrion Arnold, Quinyon Mitchell, Nate Wiggins, Cooper DeJean. I wouldn't be shocked if any of them goes one over the other, but once they start going, they're going to go. Yeah. And because all 4 guys to me are first rounders. And there's, I think, a considerable drop off then to the next kind of tier of like Kool-Aid and Rakestraw from Mizzou. So I agree. Those 4 guys are first rounders, and it's not shocking he's off the board there. The Vikings are back at 23. So originally my plan was they would hope that McCarthy falls this far. I don't believe the Vikings are going to force a quarterback at 23 that's not one of those 4 guys. I really don't believe they're going to force a QB here. I don't envision them falling in love. To me, as much as I really like Michael Penix Jr., his comp is Teddy Bridgewater in a lot of ways. And that's bad vibes for the Vikings. Bo Nix at 23. Listen, I think, is he much of a better player right now than going with Sam Darnold? No, he's not. So yeah. I think the Vikings are going to hope and pray that someone falls to the third round who they like, or late second round they trade back into it, and they go get a guy who they like, who they say, all right, fan base, if Sam Darnold is a disaster, we can throw this guy in for a couple games. Sure. And we're gonna eye a big free agency move next year or a draft next year to try to get in, to do something to get back into the first round. They've given up a lot to have 2 first-round picks this year. I know it seems like then a reach that they don't take a quarterback even though they've gone 2 first-rounders, but I think they feel like this team is very win now if the defense improves. And the other big, piece they're missing on the defense was not just edge, but inside. And Newton from Illinois is still sitting there, so I'm going to go with Zerhan. I think it's Jerzon, but I think he goes by I think he goes by Johnny sometimes. Newton, the defensive lineman from Illinois. I think him and Byron Murphy from Texas, kind of interchangeable. I like Byron Murphy a little bit more than I like Newton, but I think that the Vikings would be really happy to look at this draft and say, hey, we just upgraded our defensive line so much, and now we can feel really good about them going after and having to get at pressure on Caleb Williams, pressure on Jordan Love, pressure on Jared Goff, the best quarterback in the division. So I think this is where they go in a pivot move. They stay with the defensive side of the football. Again, I think their goal is to make a big move, to move up. If they can't do it, I don't think they mortgage anything more, and either you see them, take a quarterback who falls, or they ride and they try to fix that defense in one draft. And this would certainly go a long way.
It would. I mean, this wouldn't be a bad backup plan for them to be able to, rectify those wrongs of the last probably 5 years of a decline there on the defensive side, and obviously a good prospect there in Newton for Minnesota. And it's kind of it works both ways for you. You'll be able to get some pressure on some young quarterbacks in division, but also you'll maybe be able to help keep the score low for your potentially struggling offense with, Sam Darnold. We just don't know how that's going to work out for this team. So anything to help maybe keep the score a little bit lower and help aid that offense as it comes along. I think Newton and Verse will go a long way to getting that done. Dallas is an interesting one here at 24, Mark. Be curious to see kind of what your thoughts are, because, the Dallas thing to do would very likely be go and attack one of those other wide receivers. And I am struggling with the fact that we only have 3 wide receivers off the board to this point, or 4 wide receivers off the board. It's 3. Yeah. So we've had 3 drafted only right now, and we're going into the mid to late 20s.
Yeah.
And it does seem like Dallas would do something like that, but they do still have a pure number one. I don't think wide receiver has been their biggest issues. And they are in dire need of interior offensive line help. I think Dallas might very well be the first team to go and attack the center position in this draft. And so I think Dallas is going to go after either Jackson Powers-Johnson or Graham Barton, who's listed as a tackle right now. He's a giant guy out of Duke who's played center, and they project him to be center. And so since he's gotten a lot of steam as of late, Graham Barton, I think I'm going to have him be the pick and have him be the center for the Dallas Cowboys, or they can move him inside to guard, whatever they want to do there. But I'm going to have Graham Barton go off the board here to Dallas, and maybe the wiser choice for them rather than going and trying to attack wide receiver at this point. But curious your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with that. I think Dallas, they've actually been pretty responsible in the last couple of years and not making the splash draft pick. Mm-hmm. They need to be able to improve that offensive line and not spend a ton of money on it. So I think it's a fair pick. I just also
it could have been Jackson Powers Johnson easily, but
yeah, for sure, absolutely. I also think they would look to, it's tough. This is that point at the time where you're kind of throwing things at the wall, seeing what sticks, and so I'm not angry with it. I don't have a strong. They need to do this depending on who's left.
Sure.
With them, and it certainly fills a need. That's for sure.
Yeah, Tyler Guyton was probably the only other tackle that was projected as a first-round tackle. There aren't really many guards left, so it's really, are they going center or are they going to go wide receiver? And I just felt they'll attack center and interior line here.
With the Packers at 25, this is a team that always historically develops talent well, and there is one guy out there who's as raw as they get, but his ceiling is a Hall of Famer, and that is Tyler Guyton, the tackle out of Oklahoma. They need offensive line help. Bakhtiari's gone. All the names you remember from those great Packers offensive lines, they're gone.
Yep.
Tyler Guyton is a guy who can come in, and there's a lot of star pass rushers in the division. I mean, the Vikings just got Jared Verse in this world. The Bears, obviously, with Montez Sweat, Hutchinson in Detroit. And so Tyler Guyton will fulfill a big need as an offensive tackle. They would love the Packers for one of those 2 D tackles to fall to them too, from Texas or Illinois. I think also they would love for one of those top 4 corners to fall. I've seen a lot of mock drafts where they reach for like Kool-Aid and McKinstry and other corners. At this point in time, if none of those top 4 corners there and a guy like Guyton is still on the board, I think the Packers organization feels confident they could develop him. So that's the pick, Tyler Guyton, tackle from Oklahoma.
Yeah, and it's a big need for the Green Bay, so I'm totally on board with that pick. Tampa Bay is next on the clock. They could go a couple different ways here, running backs, tight ends, like some of their bigger needs, but they're not going to go that route in the first round, I don't think. They'll either go center or corner. And to me, at this point in the draft, while maybe they got scared off that the first center's already off the board at Dallas, and oh man, are we going to have to race to get, one of the remaining 2? I think with Kool-Aid McKinstry, they're a very interesting prospect, and one who had a lot of steam last year, and lost it a little bit this year, but nobody threw the ball his way at all this past season. So he might have almost fallen under the radar because he just didn't get much work in. Because the teams are just not throwing his way. I think they'll go and attack Kool-Aid McKinstry here. Todd Bowles, we know, likes his defensive players, and hey, go after it, get the corner, and feel good about where you're sitting there at 26 to be able to get one of the top 3 corners in the draft. You could argue maybe even the best one potentially in this draft to get him at 26. That's a good pick for Tampa.
God, that's tough. That's what I was going to do with Arizona next. They need a corner.
I keep swiping your pick right.
They need a corner bad, and I just don't think they reach at this point. They're not taking the 5th corner. They're not taking the 6th corner off the board in the first round. But I think I'm going to pivot. I'm going to pivot. They went offense with 4. They have a defensive head coach. They have a lot of need to get after the quarterback in the NFC West. Go get after Brock Purdy. Go get after Matt Stafford. So I think they go with a kid who, to me, has all the physical tools to just become a stud. And this is right around where he's ranked on Mel's big board and some others. A school that has a history of producing elite pass rusher talent. He's listed as an outside linebacker. Chop Robinson, Penn State, is a guy I think that their head coach will be able to, Nick Gannon will be able to figure out a way to use him extremely well and to help that Arizona Cardinals defense that needs help.
Yeah, I have no issues with that. They're going to probably have to go defense sooner rather than later here. And so is Darius his first name, right?
Yeah.
Or no, I'm sorry, Chop. It is Chop.
Chop.
I didn't realize his name was actually Chop Robinson. That's great. I thought that
legit.
But yeah, they got him listed there. Chop Robinson. Love it. All right, cool. So yeah, they addressed the edge position there and pair him with Marvin Harrison Jr. on the other side. Not a bad draft here for the Arizona Cardinals. Of course, this pick they got from Houston in that trade last year, which, wow, what a great trade for Houston. The fact that their first rounder ended up being the 27th overall pick the following year. I'm sure Arizona didn't see that coming, or maybe they would have requested a little bit more.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, if I'm Buffalo, then I'm super stoked that I've got my pick of like 3 still first round capable wide receivers
Yep.
here. It's kind of a brainer. You know, you lost Gabe Davis, you lost Stephon Diggs, who was traded, and so here you are with the ability to retool that entire room. I'm going to go Brian Thomas. I think you can make the case for Adonai Mitchell. You can make the case for Ladd McConkey. I think they're all really talented. But Brian Thomas is probably the most well-rounded, pro-ready out of the group. And so he'll fit right in with that Buffalo offense. And I really like that fit there. And at 28, to get the number 4 wide receiver, I think they'll be happily running that card up to the podium to put in for.
This is the part of the draft now where everyone's nervous because Bills, Lions, Ravens, Niners, Chiefs, especially if the draft goes the way we've got it.
Yeah.
They all want to get their hands on either Mitchell, Thomas Jr., Leggett from South Carolina.
Yep.
Those are the McConkey from Georgia. That's it, right?
Yep.
I think the Lions see that they go Brian Thomas Jr. and are very happy to run with Mitchell from Texas, the wide receiver. They need help at the wide receiver position. He doesn't have to come in and be a number 1 wide receiver. They already have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff, accurate quarterback. Mitchell's got a big catch radius. Mitchell is a guy transferred from Georgia, runs a 4.3. He is going. He has a chance to be a star, and I think especially coming into a team where you don't have to be the number 1 guy and you don't have the pressure that maybe a Brian Thomas will feel. It's going to be, I think, a great fit for him. So I'll go with Mitchell from Texas.
It'd be crazy to go 3 wide receivers in a row, but Baltimore really, really needs a wide receiver here at pick 30. They really could use a safety. Tyler Nubin is sitting there. Could they try and take one of these centers and make him a guard? I don't know. So, yeah, we're going to go wide receiver here. We're going to go with Ladd McConkey out of Georgia. Put him into that, Todd Monken offense and let it rip. Just see it kind of, this is a guy that's got, plus athleticism, will be a great trusty, underneath source there for Lamar Jackson. And yeah, they just need some desperate help in that receiver core any way that they can get it. And so to be able to get one of the top 5-6 guys in this draft at 30, you'll be dancing for that too. So there we go. Ladd McConkey off the board to the Ravens.
All right. I got to be honest with you. The Niners here, it's tough. They need a corner. And I looking at how it's all fallen, I think they'd be pretty. I mean, they'd be stoked if one of the guys we've already named is still there, right? I think they look at this and they probably say to themselves, there's 2 names we're looking at, and that's probably Lassiter from Georgia, maybe TJ Tampa from Iowa State. I think that's a little rich to get him in the first round. Rakestraw Jr. from Missouri, I think, is probably the pick here for me. It maybe feels like a little bit of reach, but again, the 49ers, they don't need to take best available because that best available probably won't start on their team. They need to fill a need. And a guy like Ennis Rakestraw Jr. from Missouri fills the need, come in to that defense and be a part of what they already got rolling. Again, not the pressure right away to be like, oh, you need to solve all of our problems. You have a great pass rush to rely on. They need to go cornerback. To me, he's the best cornerback that we haven't said yet, so I'll go Rakestraw Jr.
Okay, yeah, that's I think it's obviously subjective picks across the board. That's how all of these are. I would like Mike Sanders still. I think he's the best corner left available on the board out of Michigan. But
really,
these guys are pretty interchangeable at this point as well amongst those top groupings. So I'm totally fine with Rakestraw. I don't feel strongly enough to utilize the override there. And then we've got, we're down here now to the Kansas City Chiefs, who we all know, that they desperately need a wide receiver. Ricky Pearsall is super interesting out of Florida. He's been a guy that's risen up boards a lot. Keon Coleman, Jalen Polk, very interesting pick too. Xavier Leggett out of South Carolina is one of those big-bodied guys. it's going to be very interesting to see how the Kansas City approaches it here at 32 because,
Yeah.
yes, there will be guys in the second round at the end of the second round that they can attack at this wide receiver position. So do they want to feel like they're reaching at this point? But at the same time, they're picking at the very end of the second round.
Yeah,
if
and they
you
don't
feel
have
strongly about a
needs.
guy, yeah, it's such a big need. PFF interestingly has Troy Franklin and Roman Wilson here as their next best two. That's not how I feel. I'm more of a Ricky Pearsall, Keon Coleman,
I
Xavier
agree.
Legette, Jalen Polk. I like Jalen Polk a lot too, but I do think I'm going to go out of Florida State. I think I'm going to go with Keon Coleman here. And really,
Yeah.
I mean, it's between him and Pearsall in my mind overall. And I could see that most guys are going to work here with Kansas City, but I think Coleman will complement Rashee Rice well. And we saw Rice come along perfectly good at that latter stages there. So yeah, Keon Coleman will be a great pick for them there, and that will round out the first round for us. If I could somehow figure out,
Dan, I will say
X out of this ad,
I agree with you.
it's like, what's going on?
I agree with you, Keon Coleman. He's a bigger wide receiver. Rashee Rice 6'1", Keon Coleman 6'3", and so they'll complement each other well. And honestly, at this point, Rashee Rice may miss the year. Like it could be that type of suspension,
right? No, it very
depending.
well.
I don't know how Rashee Rice is going to avoid some sort of like real sentencing here. I mean, it doesn't seem like the type of thing you could just pay the fine. There's multiple charges.
Yeah.
The video proves how reckless it was, and you left the scene, and there's video of you leaving the scene. Like, as remorseful as you may be, and as cooperative as you may be, I really don't see how it doesn't result in some sort of charges that lead to legitimate time. Not a year, but a couple months in. I don't know. Like, it just feels like that story is out there, and I would be shocked if I would support the Chiefs trading up. I've said it all along. The Chiefs should try to get up into this draft, and there's going to be players for them to do that with. If it's a Minnesota at 23, if the quarterback's already gone, go up, get the guy you really want. Like, jump some of those teams and go get yourself Brian Thomas Jr., someone else, because you just don't know how long you're going to be without Rashee Rice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree with you there. So they've got to attack that position sooner rather than later in this draft to help protect themselves. So this here is a look at our complete first round as we complete our mock draft episode here on the Football Lounge. Do want to point out, unfortunately, we won't be able to pull off the live show next week.
Yeah, we
just
won't.
Some scheduling conflicts, but it's all good. We're gonna do what we can to attack that in future years for you all, but we will still have a complete recap episode next Friday discussing the entirety of the first round, and so we'll have reaction to all of that and be able to then give you some concise thoughts on all of these picks that we see next Thursday night. So we have to look forward to.
If anything big happens between now and the draft, we'll try our damnedest to get at least even a short episode out there to give thoughts on whatever that might be.
Yes, for sure. That is always the case here on the Football Lounge. We're happy to provide commentary as breaking news comes across. So we will stay tuned for that. But yeah, if nothing else substantial happens within the next week, then we are taking next Monday off, and we will see you back here next Friday for our full recap of the entire 2024 NFL Draft first round. After that is in the book. So really excited. Draft season's already upon us here. And then after the draft next week, that's when you really get into the downtime during the NFL season, off season. So we'll have a few months of more lists coming your way and a lot of other discussions. So stay tuned for that. We appreciate you all being here with us. Please like, subscribe here on YouTube. Check us out on social media at FB Lounge Pod. We are a part of the For Frequency Sake podcast network, I should say. You can check us out at forfantasysakec.com. that'll do it for our show here on the Football Lounge with Mark and Dan. We'll see you here next week for that recap episode.